Welcome back, one and all, to another edition of Grudge Match, where we hypothesize what would happen when characters from across the comic spectrum show up to throw down. On today's episode, we are matching up two space cops from Earth who ended up being the last ones standing in their respective universes. From DC, it's Green Lantern, and from Marvel, it's Nova. Now, when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps and the Nova Corps, there have been many members of both of those organizations. So, in order to figure out which ones we want to bring to this particular fight, we need to find the ones that are most similar to each other. Now, when it comes to Marvel, there really only is one Nova worth mentioning, and that is Richard Rider. He's the only human Nova up until very recently, when a new Nova named Sam Alexander came around, but since Richard Rider's creation in 1976, he has been the primary Nova character in the Marvel Universe. And for most of that time, he was never even involved in too many space adventures. He was a member of the New Warriors, and he kind of stayed on Earth for most of the time, dealing with Earth-based problems. But all of that changed in the Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning Annihilation series, where he became the last surviving member of the entire Nova Corps. The Nova Corps, much like the Green Lantern Corps, consisted of members from all different areas of the galaxy, and there would be one Nova member for each planet and section of the universe. And they all got wiped out by the Annihilation Wave with the exception of Richard Rider. He became the last surviving Nova member, and so in being that last surviving Nova, he took on all of the powers and all of the abilities of all the entire Nova Corps into himself, and he became Nova Prime. So when it comes to then the Green Lanterns and trying to find a comparable Green Lantern character, that Green Lantern ends up being Kyle Rayner, who for a time was the primary and sole remaining Green Lantern member. In 1994, when Kyle Rayner was created, the storyline was that Hal Jordan, who had been the primary Green Lantern in the comics up to that point, had gone crazy and ended up destroying most of the Green Lantern and all of the Guardians of the Universe, who were the little blue guys who are in charge of the Green Lanterns. So Kyle Rayner was chosen to be the sole remaining Green Lantern. And throughout his years as being a Green Lantern, he even became what was known as the Torchbearer of the Green Lanterns by taking on the living entity embodiment of the entire Green Lantern Corps, which was known as the Ion Entity. So in taking on that Ion Entity, he became the most powerful Green Lantern member, and sort of became Green Lantern Prime, much the way Richard Rider was Nova Prime. So those are the two characters we're going to be comparing. Kyle Rayner as Ion, and Richard Rider as Nova Prime. So taking a look at the powers that both of these two are bringing to the fight, when it comes to Nova Prime and Richard Rider, as the sole remaining member of the Nova Corps, he has absorbed all of the energy and all of the abilities of the entire Xanadarian Nova Corps. Now that allows him to have virtually limitless access to the gravimetric energy field, which empowers all Nova members. This allows him to create force fields, to fire incredibly powerful blasts of energy that can destroy moons and planets in a single blast. It allows him to fly faster than the speed of light, both in space and within a planetary atmosphere. It allows him to create jump gates that allows him to teleport himself from one side of the universe instantly to the other. He can also channel all of that energy into his physical form to give him incredible amounts of superhuman strength and durability, so making him one of the most physically powerful beings in the universe as well. In addition to that, he is possessed sort of by the living embodiment of the Nova Corps, which is known as the Xanadarian World Mind. It is a artificial intelligence computer with all of the knowledge and experiences of the entire Nova Corps throughout its entire history, and it's within his body too. So that Xanadarian World Mind gives him instant access to the entire range of information that it has stored within it. So it allows him to know instantly everything he needs to know about his opponents. It allows him to analyze his opponent's weaknesses, to manipulate other beings' energy fields, and it also gives him technopathy, which allows him, through the use of the World Mind, to control any machines that happen to be in the area. He can remotely hack into them and take control of any machines around him. So that's what Nova Prime is bringing to the fight. Kyle Rayner, when he took on the entity of Ion, which is the living embodiment of the green power of will from the universal spectrum, gained immense power, more so than even regular Green Lanterns have. Most Green Lanterns have to recharge their ring by the use of a Green Lantern every once in a while, or else they'll run out. But he never had to do that when he was Ion. He had limitless reserves of the willpower-based energy spectrum. And Kyle Rayner has always been one of the most talented at creating the green light constructs that the Green Lanterns are known to use. Since he was an artist before he ever became a superhero, he has a really advanced imagination and is really capable of creating very intricate structures from his Green Lantern power. In addition to those abilities, the Ion entity also gives Kyle Rayner access to reality manipulation abilities, the ability to kind of change the fabric of reality around him, as well as time manipulation as well. Now, Kyle Rayner actually took on the Ion entity in two different instances, and in the first instance, he was way more powerful than he was the second time around. So, in that first time he became Ion, he basically became a god. He had near omnipotent power. So we're actually going to examine Kyle Rayner from the standpoint of the second time he became Ion, when he was still easily the most powerful of the Green Lanterns, but not quite on a godlike level. But we're going to examine the second time he became Ion, when his powers were much more scaled down and brought down to a more mortal level. But in either instance, whether the first incarnation of Ion or the second, Kyle Rayner has one particular weakness when under the influence of the Ion entity, and that is it gives him a fairly unstable mental condition. In both instances, he sort of lost touch with his own personality, and it sent him on violent rages and outbursts from time to time. There are times he is able to control it and use it to his benefit, but other times the power just becomes too much for him. Whereas when it comes to Richard Rider as Nova Prime, having the Xanadarian World Mind within him helps him keep all that power of the Nova Corps in check. Without the World Mind, he would quickly lose control of it and probably explode and die, but having the Xanadarian World Mind within him helps keep it under control. So having examined the powers and comparing these two together, we can now determine a winner. That winner is going to be Richard Rider. As Nova Prime, he is more stable than Kyle Rayner is as Ion from a mental and emotional standpoint, and whereas Ion might have more pure, raw power and energy bestowed upon him by the Ion entity, he doesn't have so much the ability to manipulate others the way the Xanadarian World Mind allows Richard Rider to manipulate the energy fields of others. So Nova might actually be able to tap into Ion's green energy constructs and manipulate them himself. Additionally, the Xanadarian World Mind gives Richard Rider the ability to analyze and determine any adversary's weakness and then exploit that, which is something else that Kyle Rayner cannot do as the Ion entity. So based on that ability to formulate plans, to analyze their opponent's weaknesses, and to manipulate their opponent's energy and abilities himself, that gives Richard Rider as Nova Prime just the edge he needs to come out on top of this particular grudge match. So comment down below, let me know what you think of the outcome of this grudge match or any suggestions for future grudge matches, and we'll see you on the next edition of Grudge Match.